who are charged and arrested include Lontrell Williams Jr., also known as Pooh Shiesty.
Pooh Shiesty just got caught up in a serious situation after being arrested for allegedly kidnapping and robbing Gucci Mane.
The only thing I believe in, that's it. Keeping it discreet. That's my only rule.
Word on the street is Gucci Mane might have snitched on him. And here's what Gucci himself had to say about it.
I'm Ryan Rabel. I'm the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Texas. Thank you for coming.
So what exactly happened? Let's break it down. The apology. April 2nd, 2026. The U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Texas stepped in front of cameras and put the whole situation on Front Street. What went down on January 10th, 2026 inside a music studio in Dallas?
This week, 9 individuals, including well-known musical artists, kidnapped and robbed at gunpoint numerous victims at a music studio in Dallas, Texas.
9 men, including 2 rappers everybody in the culture knew had caught federal charges, kidnapping, conspiracy to commit kidnapping.
8 of the 9 were arrested yesterday in Dallas, Memphis, and Nashville. These individuals who are charged and arrested include Lontrell Williams Jr., also known as Pooh Shiesty.
One of those victims was Raddick Davis, Gucci Mane, the same man who signed Pooh Shiesty, the same man who held him down the whole bid. The same man who pulled up on Instagram when Pooh touched down in October 2025 and called him a real one. 8 of the 9 defendants got booked on April 1st, 2026. Dallas, Memphis, Nashville. Feds ran it back on all of them at the same time.
Yeah, I ain't gonna tell nobody, not even the police. I don't believe in nothing. The only thing I believe in is don't tell the police. It's the only thing I believe in. That's it. Keeping it discreet. That's my only rule. Anything goes on anyway.
Pooh Shaw, Big 30, and Pooh's own pops. That same day, Gucci went live on Instagram, and what he said, or more precisely, what he refused to say, that became the apology. He acknowledged January 10th went down. He did not deny it, but he told the whole world he was not cooperating with federal authorities or the prosecutors building the case against Pooh and the 8 co-defendants.
I still got you. I'm not the reason you're going back to the feds.
No blow-by-blow of what happened in that studio. No description of the pole that got pulled on him. No confirmation that he signed anything. No mention of the Rolexes and the jewelry that walked out the door. Just silence. A hard, deliberate refusal to help the people trying to put his artist away forever. In street language, that is an apology. Because here is the backdrop you need to understand what that silence actually meant. Gucci had been doing everything by the book. He came home from his own Fed bid, got his mind right, built 1017 back from the ground up. He put Pooh Shiesty on when the boy was still a Memphis unknown, turned him into one of the biggest names the city had ever produced. He stood 10 toes behind him the entire time Pooh was in the feds. And then, not even 3 months after Pooh stepped out the halfway house, Pooh pulled an AK-style pistol on him inside a Dallas recording studio and forced him to sign a contract release at gunpoint. So when Gucci hopped on Instagram Live and said he wasn't cooperating, he wasn't just dodging a snitch jacket. He was sending a message directly to Pooh in front of everybody. I still got you. I'm not the reason you're going back to the feds. That is the apology. What makes this even more significant is the timing of Gucci's live. He did not wait days to address it. He did not let his PR team craft a careful statement. He went live the same day the DOJ made the announcement, April 2nd, 2026. Which means he made the decision to not cooperate in real time publicly with no legal buffer between him and the culture watching. That is not a calculated PR move. That is a man choosing his code over his comfort on the spot. And the 9th defendant, Terrence Rogers, had not even been arrested yet when all of this went public. One member of the crew was still at large as of the April 2nd press release with federal agents actively working to locate him. The U.S. Attorney made clear that going public with the charges was itself a tactic, releasing the information so that members of the public could help locate the remaining defendant. The case was already moving whether the victims talked or not. But to understand how it ever got to that point, how Pooh went from being the most protected artist on the whole 1017 roster to pulling iron on the man who made him, you got to go back to where the love was real. The come-up, how Gucci built Pooh. This story did not start with smoke. It started with a car. When Gucci Mane signed Pooh to 2017 Records in 2020, he gifted him a customized Slime Trackhawk truck sitting on 1017 rims as a welcome to the family. That gesture right there tells you everything about the energy Gucci was bringing to this signing. He wasn't treating Pooh like a product to move units. He was treating him like a young general he was about to invest in for real. Gucci heard one viral record won. And he moved on it immediately. No back and forth, no bidding war, no committee meeting, just a phone call and a deal because Gucci operated like a one-man A&R who recognized Pooh's raw Memphis drill sound and decided this was his guy. The breakout track Back in Blood featuring Lil Durk hit in late 2020 and became a nationwide banger overnight. Hundreds of millions of streams, a record that proved Gucci's read on Pooh was correct from day one. Gucci stayed hands-on through the whole rollout. Video direction, release timing, the full machine behind one artist. Then Shiesty Season dropped February 5, 2021. Pooh's debut mixtape under 1017 Records and Atlantic. Gucci pulled up on the track Ugly himself. He coordinated the dates, the shoots, the whole strategy. The project debuted strong and eventually went platinum. When Pooh got back out and sat down for his XXL interview, he talked about what watching Gucci's come home did for his own mentality.
Hey, Gucci came home and they motivated me too because I took notes from there, how he switched it up, how he toned up.
Who wasn't talking about Gucci's music catalog? He was talking about how Gucci handled touching down after a federal bid. The focus, the discipline, the whole shift in how he moved.
Got fit, got his mind healthy, took notes in there every way, so they motivated me to move how I move. And
Gucci had pulled him aside and dropped some real game directly. Pooh described the specific conversation that stuck with him most.
Another thing he told me too was Shiesty, you 20 years old going to go see what I saw at 35 years old.
Gucci told Pooh straight up, you got a head start. I saw what I saw at 35. You're seeing it at 20. That's an advantage if you play it right. It could have been too late for me if I came home and didn't lock in. So lock in. That's not a label boss running his mouth at a snage. That's a OG pouring into somebody he actually sees a future in. And throughout the years, Pooh was locked up. 2022 sentencing all the way through the 2025 early release. Gucci did not fall back. He kept Pooh's name alive in the 1017 ecosystem. He posted messages of encouragement. Then in October 2024, he did the P&L review, sat down, looked at the numbers across his whole roster, and kept exactly two names, Pooh Shie and Fujiano. Every other artist got their walking papers. Pooh stayed. When Pooh finally touched down from the Pennsylvania federal facility in early October 2025, Gucci went on Instagram and posted, "The main slime is back and welcome home to a real one." By October 17, 2025, Gucci was on record confirming Pooh was still fully on 1017 and that he can't wait to work with Pooh Shiesty again. December 2025, Pooh dropped FDO under the 1017 banner. Still on the label, still moving. Everything looks solid on the surface. The 1017 roster that Gucci pruned down to essentially two artists had taken serious hits across the board in the years leading up to Pooh's release. Big Scar, whose blood cousin and one of Gucci's key 2020 Memphis signings, had passed away from a drug overdose in December 2022. Enchanting followed in June 2024. Hot Boy West caught a 15-year sentence earlier that same year. Matt Critter was facing a first-degree murder charge. The label had been hemorrhaging talent and money simultaneously, which is exactly why Gucci's decision to hold Pooh down through all of it carried even more weight. He was betting what was left of 1017's future on this one man coming home and delivering. That context matters because it reframes what Pooh's return was supposed to mean. This was not just an artist coming back from a bid. This was the last real card Gucci had left to play after years of losses, legal setbacks, and deaths thinning out the whole operation. Gucci needed Pooh to work. Pooh knew that. And somehow that knowledge, instead of creating alignment, may have handed Pooh leverage he decided to use in the worst possible way. But something underneath had been rotting the whole time. Something that had been festering every single day Pooh sat behind those walls. The crack. The contract that wouldn't let go. The fracture didn't pop off in a diss track or a public call-out. It lived in the fine print of a recording deal signed back in 2020 before Pooh had any real leverage. Before Back in Blood existed, before any of the numbers that made him worth fighting over, that contract was built around deliverables, albums, projects, not time served. Academics broke this down on site while watching the DOJ presser live.
The thing with music contracts, it's usually staggered based on deliverables in terms of albums.
Here's why that matters. In the NBA, if you sign a 5-year deal and catch a case, go away for 3 years, that clock keeps running, you come out, contract is done, you're a free agent.
You get locked up, essentially the contract gets paused.
Music doesn't work like that. The clock freezes the moment you stop delivering. Pooh came home in October 2025, still legally tied to 1017 records, as if the bid never happened. The albums he owed still owed from 1017's perspective. The debt hadn't changed, but Pooh came home a completely different artist in a completely different market. Back in Blood was 8 times platinum. The numbers he put up before going in made him worth exponentially more than what the 2020 deal reflected. That deal was signed before any of that smoke when Pooh was still a Memphis unknown with one viral track to his name. Late 2025 industry reporting said both sides treated the post-release moment as a window for a formal re-up or renegotiation. Royalty rates, marketing budgets, advances, creative control, master ownership, the whole checklist of things that need updating when a man goes from promising street rapper to proven platinum artist. Those talks kicked off professionally. But by December 2025, they had hit a wall, specifically over the gap between what Pooh thought he was worth on the current market versus what the original 2020 contract said he was owed. Academics also pointed to something that doesn't live in any legal document, but was probably eating at Pooh's chest the whole bid. The question was real. While Gucci posted support publicly and kept Pooh on the official roster, the day-to-day bread that actually reaches an artist while they're locked up, operational support, financial backing to the family that can dry up fast inside a major label structure. Whether it did or didn't in this specific situation, the perception that it might have was more than enough to plant seeds of resentment.
Shiesty probably gets out, goes to the halfway house, and he has some resentment for 1017.
Not hatred, not war, declared. Just that slow burn, the kind that builds up quietly when a man is locked in a cell counting down the days, feeling like the table he helped set kept moving without him. Then there was the Yoti layer. Academics floated the idea that Gotti, CMG's head honcho, Gucci's long-standing rival in the Memphis-Atlanta lane, had been in Pooh's ear, and Pooh himself gave a tell in his XXL interview, listing off the names of people who tapped in while he was incarcerated.
Gotti reached out, Gucci, of course, Don Tripp and Starlito.
Both names, same breath, but only one of them owned the contract that was keeping Pooh from moving freely. And that contract was not going to let him walk without a fight, which is almost certainly why the January 10th meeting got scheduled in the first place. What sealed the urgency on Pooh's end was the momentum he was already building the moment he touched down. FDO was gaining traction in December 2025. The streets were responding. His name had not faded. If anything, the absence had built the anticipation up even higher. Every stream FDO collected was a reminder of exactly how much money was sitting on the table and exactly how much of that table was still controlled by a contract he had no say in when he signed it at 20 years old. The longer the renegotiation stalled, the more that resentment had fuel. And the neutral location, Dallas, was not random. The DOJ complaint noted that the meeting was arranged at a Dallas studio, which was also where Pooh was based during his home confinement period. So, the venue that looked like a professional courtesy meeting halfway on neutral ground was actually Pooh's home turf. Gucci and his team flew in. Pooh was already there. That detail alone reframes who had the positional advantage from the moment the meeting was agreed to. Gucci and two other music industry professionals flew out to Dallas expecting a business negotiation. What they walked into was something else entirely. The takeover. What happened inside the studio? The three men who stepped inside that Dallas studio on January 10, 2026 thought they were walking into a contract discussion. What the DOJ described was a coordinated armed takeover planned in advance, executed with purpose, and so sloppily documented by the crew afterward that federal investigators had a bulletproof case built and 8 people in cuffs within 3 months. The U.S. attorney laid it out clean at the press conference.
Williams Jr. and 8 co-conspirators, several of whom traveled from Memphis, Tennessee, executed a coordinated armed takeover.
8 co-conspirators. Not a beef that got out of hand in the moment, not a spontaneous situation that escalated. A coordinated operation with a crew that packed up in Memphis and drove to Dallas specifically for this. Gunpoint.
As alleged, Williams Jr. produced an AK-style pistol and forced one of the victims to sign a release from the recording contract at gunpoint.
That victim, the one staring down a pole, he hesitated to sign. According to the complaint, Pooh got agitated before the signing went down under duress. While Gucci was being forced to sign his name, the rest of the squad was on their own assignment.
The remaining conspirators displayed firearms and robbed the other victims of Rolex watches, jewelry, cash, and other high-value items.
One of the other victims got choked from behind, taken to the edge of unconsciousness. The complaint came with photographs of injury marks on that victim's wrist and neck.
Defendant Wright barricaded the studio door with his body to prevent the victims from escaping.
That was Big 30 Rodney Wright Jr., whose longtime Memphis road dog featured on earlier 1017 projects. His assigned role in the whole operation was to physically plant himself in the doorway so nobody could run while the takeover was going down. And Pooh's father, Lantrell Williams, Sr., was not some innocent man who got caught in the crossfire. He helped architect the whole thing. He rented the vehicles the crew used to convoy from Memphis to Dallas. He allegedly helped print the contract-related documents before the meeting even started. This was a family operation top to bottom. Now, here is where the plan exposes its most catastrophic flaw. Still under the supervised release conditions from his 2022 Southern District of Florida firearms conviction. The terms were not complicated. No new offenses, no firearms. He was wearing an ankle monitor when he walked into that studio.
Electronic monitoring data placing Williams Jr. at the offense location, which would put him in violation of his home detention conditions.
The same device that was supposed to prove he was staying out of trouble put him at the exact crime scene during the exact window the arm takeover went down. The feds didn't need a witness. The ankle bracelet was the witness. Academics watched this unfold live and couldn't hold it together.
They basically said the nigga had the ankle monitor on at the robbery.
And the evidence didn't stop there. Cell phone records and license plate reader data showed the coordinated convoy rolling from Memphis to Dallas, rental car records tied directly to Pooh's father, surveillance footage from the studio itself, from a nearby office supply store where documents got printed before the meeting, and from the hotel where multiple defendants crashed afterward. Latent fingerprints pulled from the crime scene matched at least 2 defendants. And within hours of leaving the studio, members of the crew did what street names always do.
Social media posts by defendants displaying what appears to be stolen property just in the days following the offense.
They went straight to social media. Videos of what looked like a Rolex watch. Photos of defendants wearing jewelry that matched items reported stolen posted publicly hours after the robbery. Academics had flagged this behavior pattern before the charges even dropped.
The niggas could never stop nigging, huh? Soon as they get out of the studio, they went to social media to post the proof that they did do the robbery.
Greyhound bus records then showed the crew's return trip from Dallas back to Memphis the very next morning. The exit strategy the crew chose made the evidence chain even tighter. Rather than flying, where ID requirements create a paper trail, several defendants boarded a Greyhound bus back to Memphis the day after the offense. That bus record became one more link in the chain prosecutors used to establish coordinated flight from the scene. And while the crew thought taking the bus was the smarter move, Greyhound records still document passenger travel, meaning the attempt to stay off the radar actually handed investigators another time-stamped record, placing the defendants on a route out of Dallas the morning after the takeover. The FBI Dallas Violent Crimes Task Force did not work this case alone. They coordinated with the FBI's Memphis Resident Agency, the Nashville Field Office, the Memphis Safe Task Force, the Dallas Police Department, and U.S. Attorney's offices across the Western, Middle, and Eastern Districts of Tennessee and the Eastern District of Texas. The scale of that coordination, multiple FBI field offices, multiple jurisdictions, multiple agencies tells you exactly how seriously the government was treating this case from the jump. This was not a local matter that got escalated. This was a federal priority from day one. From the ankle monitor GPS to the bus tickets, the government had an unbroken chain. No gaps, no guesswork. Which means when Gucci went live and said he wasn't cooperating, it barely moved the needle on the government's case, but it said everything about where Gucci's loyalty still sat. The aftermath, what it all means. When the U.S. Attorney finished his statement on April 2, 2026, he left the room with zero ambiguity about what he thought this situation represented.
In this case, came to Dallas to conduct legitimate business, and they were met with firearms and violence as alleged in the charging document. This case should serve as a warning to others who believe that using violence and intimidation tactics to rob others in our community is a viable way to conduct business.
And that warning carried real weight behind it because the penalties attached to these charges are not light. All 9 defendants are facing federal charges of kidnapping and conspiracy to commit kidnapping, each one carrying a maximum penalty of life imprisonment. He caught these new charges while still under supervised release from Florida. The ankle monitor data doesn't just put him at the scene. It simultaneously documents a supervised release violation that becomes an aggravating factor when sentencing comes around, stacked on top of whatever the kidnapping and conspiracy counts carry on their own. The U.S. Attorney confirmed the range when reporters pressed him on it.
They're facing a range, so there's no mandatory minimum in this case. It's a range of punishment, and it'll be in the province of the judge, whoever gets the case. But it could be from 0 all the way to life imprisonment. The individual's previous criminal history, the fact that one of these individuals committed the offense while on home confinement.
That prior criminal history the U.S. Attorney referenced is not a minor detail. It is the thing that turns an already serious sentence into something potentially irreversible.
So actually serving a federal offense, assuming that individual is convicted, that will be an aggravating factor for sure.
For Gucci, the aftermath hits different. He is listed in the complaint as victim R.D. Raddick Davis. He got a gun pulled on him. He got forced to sign a document under threat of violence. His people got choked and stripped of their jewelry in the same room. And then he hopped on Instagram Live and told the world he was not helping the government prosecute the people who ran down on him. Legal observers noted that federal cases stacked with the level of documentary evidence in this complaint rarely need victim cooperation to close. The surveillance, the fingerprints, the ankle monitor data, the social media posts, all of it was already locked in the filing before Gucci said a word publicly. The government does not need Gucci on the stand to convict. They need the ankle bracelet, the bus tickets, and the Instagram videos. That's already in the folder. But Adam 22, speaking before the formal charges even dropped, had already identified the image problem nobody in the culture wanted to talk about directly.
To be honest, it kind of feels like, I don't know how Gucci Mane's image recovers from this, because unless he's able to put forth a compelling narrative that tells this in a different way, you know, I think the idea of Gucci Mane being somebody that you want to sign to as an artist, that balloon has popped.
That assessment landed before the world even knew the full scope of what went down in that Dallas studio. In October 2024, Gucci reviewed his P&L and cut almost his entire roster down to 2 names. He kept Pooh and Fu while everyone else got dropped. He held Pooh down through the bid, posted for him when he came home, confirmed the label deal was still intact, and set up what was supposed to be the biggest chapter of both of their careers. And the artist he bet everything on, the one he waited years for, came home and organized a 9-man armed takeover of a business meeting, pulled an AK on him, and forced him to sign away his own recording contract at gunpoint. And what makes Gucci's no-operation stance even more layered is what it does and does not actually protect. The forced contract signing that Pooh allegedly extracted at gunpoint is not legally enforceable. A signature obtained under duress with a firearm pointed at the signer holds no legal weight. Gucci does not lose the contract because of what happened in that studio. The document Pooh forced him to sign is worthless in any court that reviews how it was obtained. So the entire operation, the convoy from Memphis, the 9-man crew, the AK, the robbery, the chokeholds achieved nothing on the contractual front. Pooh is still legally bound to 1017, and now he is facing life in federal prison on top of it. Thanks for watching. If you had a good time, keep the adventure alive by clicking on one of the suggested videos on your screen right now for more amazing content.